We all know what happened here. Tamir Al-Fari, Sammy Johair, Amanda Khalil roll inside a group of their friends, got a limo, and we're going to the big party, the champagne explosion. Going in style. They get the most prestigious VIP booth. It's right on the dance floor, right in the center, right when you walk in. And they got unlimited alcohol that night. And not only that, but a waitress to pour them drinks. Terrell Hicks comes upon them, sees a woman smoking, politely asks her to put it out. But you see, Sammy Johair and Tamir Al-Fari and their group, they think they're above the law, that the rules don't apply to them. And so the girl puts it out, but moments later she lights it back up. And Terrell Hicks comes by again and asks her politely, hey, you gotta put it out. I don't have to ask anybody to leave. But he says to the whole group, there's no smoking inside in Michigan. Everybody knows this. So please don't do this. And then it's about a half an hour later when he gets a call from Joe Cleveland, head of security, that in fact these people are continuing to smoke. And he heads over there and let him know that they have to go. And that's when he's attacked and he's beat. And this whole group of them have these security guards outnumbered. He's beat, he's punched, he's kicked it and knocked to the ground. And you heard from Shomari Humphreys that in fact he sees Terrell get knocked unconscious when these guys are beating on him. And that these patrons, this group, this VIP group, they're throwing glasses, they're throwing furniture, throwing bottles. These guys are trying to knock them away. They're greatly outnumbered because people like Sammy Johair and Tamir Al-Fari, it's not like a fair fight to them. They fight for one purpose, and that's to win. And that's to prove a point, which is not to mess with them. And so whether it's kicking somebody when they're on the ground, or four guys beating up on one guy, or throwing glasses and bottles, doesn't matter. There are no rules of engagement for them. And they go after all security guards. And when Terrell Hicks, after he's knocked down or knocked unconscious, manages to get away from it all and gets out the door to go get some help, they go after him. But they don't see him out there. And they see another black male, maybe thinking it's Terrell, who's got the black security shirt on, and they go after him. And they're not going after to talk with him. They're going after him to kick his ass. And the only thing that stops them from kicking his ass is Officer Salter, who shows up and has told you that in fact these guys were coming after Leroy Shaw. In his opinion, they were out there for retaliation. They told him that Leroy Shaw had in fact, Al-Fari and Johair had pointed to Leroy Shaw on the ground and said, this is the guy that hit us. And so Salter's thinking that's the guy that hit him. But as soon as Al-Fari sees Terrell Hicks walk out the door number 2, he goes around the police officer and goes to attack Terrell Hicks. And he's not just going to talk to him or he's pointing him out for the police. We know that was a lie. He's going after him for vengeance. And he comes at Terrell, and Terrell lifts the bottle up and tells him, stay back, don't come closer. But Al-Fari doesn't care because he's in a drunken rage. And he can lie to you about it all he wants. But the clear facts are, you saw the photo of him that night. His eyes are going in different directions. He's so drunk. And he can't even talk to the police. He's so confused and drunk. And he wants you to believe that he's lost blood or is in pain or medication. But we put his medical records into evidence, which prove that in fact he wasn't given any anesthesia or painkiller, and he wasn't even experiencing any pain. So therefore, the only thing that it could be of why he's this way is because he's totally drunk. And that's what the officer tells you, that this guy is inebriated. And he's not using any rational judgment. And he admits to you that he's angry, he's in a rage. And from his own words, he goes after Terrell Hicks. And that's exactly what happened. And Terrell had no choice but to try to defend himself. And we know that in fact Terrell doesn't hit Al-Fari when he's attacking him with the bottle like the officer thinks he saw. Because see, Al-Wafari doesn't give his statement of what happened on that night because he's so drunk until January 25th. By that time, he has a chance to talk to his friends, before I talk to the police officer. So at that time, he knows that the police, for the most, believe that he was hit in the head with the bottle. So he makes up a story that, in fact, he was hit after him and Terrell Hicks were like tied up against the wall. That after they let go of each other, that's when Terrell Hicks takes the bottle and smashes on his head. But we know that's a lie because there's no injuries to the front or side of his head. The only injuries are to the back of his head. And we know that those were caused indoors when somebody smashed a vase over his head. Because from his testimony, you heard him say that in fact, he only lets him and Terrell Hicks are wrestling inside, and he only lets go when he feels, and when he gets hit in the head with something and feels the blood trickling down. That's when he lets go of Terrell Hicks inside. So we know that's where those injuries came from. And you can see the injuries. They're clearly lacerations or cuts, as opposed to, and we know that the bottle didn't break because we have the bottle right here that the officer collected as evidence, as opposed to a blunt force trauma, which has an uneven cut. And you can see that, that's a split. That's not a laceration. And that's another reason why we know that, in fact, Terrell Hicks never hits Tamir Al-Wafari with a bottle at any time outside for those reasons. And the medical records show that all the injuries are right to the back of his head. There's nothing to the front or side, where the injuries would have to be if, in fact, he swung the bottle at and hit Al-Wafari as Al-Wafari was attacking him. And so that's how we know what happened that night. And that's if we just listen to their version of it without even listening to, Shomari Humphreys or Terrell Hicks. And think about this. What it is to be like to be Terrell Hicks. To be at work, doing your job, to be attacked, to be beat up, knocked unconscious, to be called by the police, then after that, to be attacked again by the same group, even though there's a police officer there, and the police officer doesn't do anything to help you, even though you're working security and these guys are all drunk, he comes and he thinks you're the culprit trying to tase you. And then you're called by the police and you go down there and you give them your statement, and they don't do anything with it except charge you, even though you explained to them what happened. They just take everybody else's word for it and do very little investigation. And then have to wait for 5 months that, and again, come to court and defend yourself again. And to have to trust a group of strangers that you do not know with your life. And, you think about the, things that we all worry about, whether it's our children or, if we're in school, our grades, or, a lot of us worry about our job and employment. But how many of us here have to worry that we might not be going home at the end of the day? That's something really to worry about. And that's what Terrell Hicks has had on his mind for months now. This case is important to Terrell because it's his life, it's his future on the line. But it's important to all of us. Because with your verdict, you can tell the world that, in Wayne County, if you're attacked, you have no right to defend yourself. Because if you do, you'll be prosecuted and convicted. And you can also tell, and at the same time, you'd be saying, when the prosecutor brings a case, they can bring the thinnest sliver of evidence, the thinnest sliver of a case, and you'll convict. Don't worry about getting all the information and all the facts. Just a partial set of facts will be good enough. Or you can let the world know that, we all have a right to defend ourselves when we're attacked. And even in Wayne County. And if the prosecutor is going to bring a case and try to take a man's good name, reputation, and maybe even his freedom, that they better bring all the evidence and all the proof, and not some narrow perspective as which they're trying to present here. We know what the facts are, but it's your duty to apply the law to the facts. And the most important thing in this case is the presumption of innocence, which every person accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. This means that you must start out with presumption that Terrell Hicks is innocent. And the second part of this is the burden of proof. And the third part is reasonable doubt, which comes out of the evidence or lack of evidence. And a reasonable doubt is a doubt you can attach a reason to. For example, because Terrell has black hair is no reason to find him innocent because it has nothing to do with his guilt or innocence. But you think about the lack of evidence. Think about all those friends of Tamir Al-Wafari that were there. We named many of them: Amanda Khalil, his girlfriend, Sammy Johair, Rodwin Saad, and at least 6 to 10 others. The prosecutor doesn't call one of them as a witness. And think about why that must be. Maybe because they too will further prove Terrell Hicks is innocent, just like Tamir Al-Wafari's testimony proved. Doesn't that make sense as to why they would call all those people? The other very important jury instruction in this case is self-defense. And part of this instruction is Terrell Hicks' conduct. You must judge Terrell Hicks' conduct according to how the circumstances appeared to him at the time he acted. Second, when he acted, Terrell Hicks must have honestly and reasonably believed that he had to use force to protect himself from the imminent unlawful use of force by another. If his belief was honest and reasonable, he could act at once to defend himself, even if it turns out later that he was wrong about how much danger he was in. And then third, a person is only justified using the degree of force that seems necessary at the time to protect himself from danger. Terrell Hicks must have used the kind of force that was appropriate to the attack made in the circumstances as he saw them. When you decide whether the force used was what seemed necessary, you should consider whether Terrell Hicks knew about any other ways of protecting himself. But you may also consider how the excitement of the moment affected the choice Terrell Hicks made. And this is what we talked about in voir dire, about putting yourself in his shoes, about seeing the world through his eyes. Because there's some experiences as human beings that are so unique that we can't really imagine what they're like. To imagine what it's like to be beat up, to be punched in the head and kicked and almost knocked unconscious, and then have the same person attack you. Well, another one of those experiences is on September 19th of last year, I lost my mother. And I'd never lost anybody before. And so I didn't know what that felt like. And a friend of mine who had lost his mother a couple months earlier, I didn't know what to say to him. Because saying to him, I'm sorry for your loss, felt very disingenuous to me. Because I had no idea what his loss was. But after I lost my mother, I saw that a friend of mine about a week later, and I was able to say to him, I'm sorry for your loss. And he understood that I knew what he meant, what he felt. Because now I had the experience. Unfortunately, now I knew what it was like. And that's sort of like what we have here. And that's why you have to judge this situation from Terrell's perspective, from his eyes. In a moment, I'm to sit down, and the judge is going to send you back to start deliberating. And the first thing you're going to have to do is pick a foreperson. And I would suggest to you that the person you pick be the person with the greatest commitment to Terrell's innocence, to his belief that he was defending himself. Because isn't that what you would want if you or somebody you cared about was sitting where Terrell's sitting? And I've seen, like in famous cases, where they go back there and they, after they interview the jury afterwards, and they say, well, how'd you vote when you first got back there? And they say, oh, it was like 6-6 or 7-5. And I'm thinking to myself watching this, how could they vote right when they get back there if they're presuming him innocent? So I'm going to ask you not to do that. That instead of doing that, you each make a list for yourselves of the top 10 reasons why you believe Terrell is innocent. And I made a list myself, and you may have these on your list, or you may have different ones. Al-Wafari found Terrell Hicks outside after the fight inside. Al-Wafari gained first seeking vengeance on Shaw. Al-Wafari admitted that he was angry and used poor judgment when he attacked Terrell Hicks. Al-Wafari did stop after he saw the bottle in Terrell Hicks' hand. The fight happened by door number 2. El-Wafari's injuries were caused by a sharp object, like the corner of a vase. They were cuts, lacerations, not blunt force trauma. El-Wafari's injuries are not caused by Terrell Hicks. El-Wafari testified that he was wrestling with Terrell Hicks and only stopped because he got hit in the head and was bleeding. No injuries to the front or side of El-Wafari's head. El-Wafari admits Terrell Hicks did not hit him during El-Wafari's initial attack. Claims he got hit after both were tased and he let go of Terrell Hicks. Officer standing right there, 10 feet away, and is certain Hicks now struck El-Wafari at the bottom. Joe Hare's injury was caused by Terrell Hicks, and he admitted such to the detective. Joe Hare's injury was clearly caused by blunt force trauma. And you know that Joe Hare, that he's not being charged with hitting Joe Hare, because they all know he was acting in self-defense. El-Wafari lied about being drunk, about being in a fight inside the hotel, about none of his group fighting inside the hotel, and about not attacking Leroy Shaw. And the entire situation would have been avoided if his group had left when asked by the hotel security, and he admitted that. And lastly, what was the prosecutor's strategy in not calling at least his good friends over there, Sammy Joe Hare, Amanda Khalil, Rashad Berry, and Rodman Saad? I think we know what that strategy was, folks. What's been my responsibility for the last 5 months is shortly going to become your responsibility. And you're going to know what it's like to, and I hope I've done enough, but to have a person's life in your hands. Because your decision will last forever, will forever affect Terrell Hicks. And in cases like this, you know, and when I sit down, the prosecutor might come up with new arguments because she had such a short closing and didn't really argue any of the facts. I'm sure she's going to come back and argue something different. I'm not going to have a chance to answer it. And Terrell and myself will be looking to you to answer her new accusations that she throws out. And in cases like this, you know, when there's so much evidence that proves that the defendant's innocent, a lot of people think, well, why don't the prosecution just dismiss the case? And it's because they're human, folks. If they were to dismiss the charges against Terrell Hicks after, you know, having them against him for 6 months, they would have to acknowledge the fact that they were duped, that they were lied to, and that they ruined 6 months of a good man's life. And they might have to think to themselves, how many other innocent people have we convicted because we blindly followed the lies of an accuser by our own prejudice and bias? It's so much easier for them to just say, you know what, to give it to a jury, let you find him not guilty, and say, oh, you know what, we still believe we were right, that he was guilty, but he was saved by reasonable doubt. You know, while we're waiting for you to deliberate, that time really drags. And so, you know, I ask that you have a really fast verdict, so that way you could let the prosecutor know that when you got a garbage case, just dismiss it. And it lets them know that this is garbage, and maybe it'll save some other innocent person from having to experience what Terrell had to go through these last 6 months. But on the other hand, you know, if it takes long to deliberate, whether it's an hour or a day, I want you to take as much time as possible, because this is a life-altering decision. But in the end, I think we all know, even the prosecutor knows, that Terrell Hicks was defending himself, and that he's innocent.